Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. It's Brexit week. It's happened. Here we are. We're still alive, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to process it. We've got some fantastic global mobility professionals in the field of immigration here today. I'm super excited to have Antonio Lamb from Shores and Legal. How are you, Antonio?
Very well, thank you. Great to be here.
Great. You come highly recommended, Antonio. Super high bar. Okay.
Well, hence that's why I've actually worn the tie as well, because I want to keep up with yesterday's sort of theme is tie wearing.
I can't imagine your fee for today. Fiona, thank you so much for being here. Fiona Mougenot, Managing Director, Expat Partners, one of the friends of the show. It's so great to see you again, Fiona.
Thanks, Ben. Great to be here. Great to be on the show with Antonio as well.
And Fiona, where are you coming to us from today?
So I'm in Paris. I'm in front of the Eiffel Tower. I know, dream about it, but you'll be coming soon.
I cannot wait, Fiona, and we are going to dedicate at least half of the show to talking about that, because that's what everybody wants to talk about.
There you are. Antonio, you can come as well.
Thank you.
Well, he may need some additional documentation, right?
A lot of it.
He may need quite a lot of documentation, and today he can't go anywhere. They're in lockdown. So.
Indeed, take photos. Antonio, that's all I can do.
Antonio, where are you today?
I'm in London today. Lockdown London.
Lockdown London. That's catchy. Let's see here. We got people checking in right now. Hey, everybody, let us know who you are, where you are, what you're doing. If you're having a little drink, if you're on the other side of the pond right now, let me know about that. I want to know. Feel free to ask your immigration questions for our immigration and global mobility experts. Feel free to ask anything. We had some fantastic questions yesterday. We had some interesting points of view on Brexit. We may get into those if our guests want to share. But I want to give some real quick shout outs to the people checking in here. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Tim Quirk, hello, Antonio and Fiona and Ben from hashtag Western New York. Valerie McKenzie, hi, Antonio, Fiona, happy new year. Look at this. This is great. Stacy Huff, excited to hear what's going on here. Antonio, Fiona, curious what impacts they are seeing as a result of Brexit and COVID. Yes, let's get to that. Let's see here. A couple more shout outs, and we're going to get to that question right there. Let us know your questions. Hit that like button. Oops, forgot Valerie with Deluxe checking in from Houston. What up, Val? Let's see. Ben Sukia, bonsoir. Fiona and Antonio, see you in Paris. Brother Ben Cross. Nice. Nice. I have a brother from Mauritius. I love it. Janet Turner, hey folks from Central Florida, looking forward to the show. What's up, Janet? Super producer Janet, watching back there. I'm going to give a couple more shout outs. Annette Walters, hello from sunny Dallas. Are you here yet? No, I'm not, because I'm in a basement and they do not make those in Texas. That is the only thing about Texas that is not bigger, is the lack of basements. Alan King, hi, Antonio, Fiona, and Ben checking in from Germany. Nicola, again from Germany. He was on the show yesterday. Thanks. Carl, checking in. Howdy, beautiful downtown Alexandria, Virginia. LinkedIn user, hello from Brazil. Happy New Year, everyone. And little heart eyeballs for Fiona Mougenot. That LinkedIn. Who's this LinkedIn user? Let us know who you are. It's not coming up here. Rob Zeitz, hello from Boston at Air Inc. What up, Rob? Good to see you. Phil Stapleton, Happy New Year from SITU. Don't know where that is. Love it. Georgia, Happy New Year, sunny Florida. Okay, let's get to the first question we have here. And you know, your questions will always be prioritized, so leave your questions here for our experts. Stacy Huff, who is a co-producer here on the show, backstage with the hard-hitting questions. She's also at TRC Global and RMC here in the United States. She says she's excited to hear what's going on here, Antonio and Fiona. Curious what impacts they are seeing as a result of Brexit and COVID. So let's start with you, Antonio. What impacts are you seeing as a result of Brexit and COVID? This is a hard question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually having a discussion with Fiona just now. I think the heavy lifting will go to her side, because our side is actually not as bad in terms of the Brexit side. I think we are slightly more prepared in the sense that we know we're going to be exiting, or at least Boris knows that he's exiting. So a year beforehand, we've been advertising, you know, this new amazing point-based system, which is not really new, but here we go. That's my 2 cents on that. But we have this point-based.
What's the point-based system for those of us who are uninitiated?
Well, for those that actually know what the point-based system is in the sense of a real point-based system, actually, supposedly, people come into to a particular country based on certain points, qualifications, or an English language, or whatever may be the case, to meet a minimum point-based criteria before they're eligible to apply for a work permit or residence permit or anything of that sort. Unfortunately, the UK has adopted something, as usual, I think, absolutely amazing. You either have the points or you don't. So it's not really, it's more like playing bingo than actually point-based system, so to speak. But essentially what we have is we have to meet 70 points to come into the UK.
7-0 or 1-7?
7-0. But to be honest with you, they effectively, there's just 5 things that you need to meet. Either you meet them or you don't. So the points actually is absolutely irrelevant, I would say. I think we just want to be cool. Like the Australians and Canada, and we say we have this whole new point-based system. But in fact,
there's 5 requirements and 65 style points.
Well, yeah, but each point is like 20 points or 10 points there. So it's effectively, again, it's very, very archaic thing, which is, do you meet the English language requirement? Yes, you do. You have a set number of points. Do you meet the minimum skill level? You do. So you have your 20 points. Do you meet your salary level? You do. And that's your points. So you don't have a range. Like, you can get 5 points if you earn £10, or So
I want to ask more about this, okay? Because I barely meet the English language standard. But what are some of the other standards? Can you tell us what are the 5? Like, what are like the 5 that are like super required that you absolutely have to meet?
Yeah, so we're looking at your English language. We're looking at skill level. We're looking at whether or not there's a vacancy. Effectively, there's a genuine vacancy, and your salary level. So there's a whole point-based table that you can look at. It's not very exciting. It's really just a case of, can you tick box? Is the job there? Does the job meet that skill level? Does do you meet the English language requirement? That type of stuff, and then you just take it, and that's your effective.
So I'm very selfish, Antonio. So I want to talk about me for a minute, okay? So if I were thinking about relocating to London,
you're coming to Paris.
Well,
you're going to Paris.
I'm going to split time, guys. Don't fight. Don't fight. Is there a shortage of podcasters in London such that I could fill a demand?
Yeah, so the skill level, actually, it's a funny thing. The skill level used to be graduate skill level. So you have to meet a certain skill level, and I suppose that's the great thing about this new so-called point-based system. Forget about the ridiculousness of whether you actually meet the points or not. It's actually the case of what is that skill level. It used to be you have to be graduate job level, which we call Algarve level 6, but they've lowered that skill level. Now, I'm not saying broadcaster is not of that level. I need to check whether or not it's level 6.
Thank you, Antonio. Seriously, because this would be a very short show for you, my friend. Okay, do not besmirch me.
Antonio, if you don't have, if you haven't graduated, because a lot of people who haven't gone to university or graduated, would the years of experience in that field count?
Well, actually, the funny thing is, it's not really by education they're looking at. The only thing in terms of education, because of course we understand the fact that skills are gained through experience, a lot of it, rather than actually by studying. So when they say graduate skill level back in the day, it's not really you have to be a graduate of sorts. It's whether the skill level meets that sort of graduate level. But now it's been lowered, so it's more the A levels or more high school graduate level that you need to meet. So your chefs, for example, which used to be shortage, and there's still sort of shortage, but even if it's not shortage, it will be, it can be met because it is of a sufficient skilled level rather than this sort of arbitrary sort of skill level. So, for example, broadcaster would be, of course, it will be counted as journalist, for example. So it will be highly skilled, so to speak. And you'll need
highly skilled. Now you're doing better.
I'm going to use that word now.
I thought I was going to have to be a part-time chef to get in.
No, and you have to be experienced. You have to be mature and experienced, Ben. Mature experience for a highly skilled position. There you go.
Let's hope mature is one of those 65 points that doesn't really count. Let's see here. We got some great comments coming in here. I want to hear your questions. If you're watching right now, let us know your questions. Hit that like button right now. We got a bunch of people on LinkedIn right now. I'd love to hear your questions for Fiona and for Antonio about immigration matters within Europe. Right now, we got a few more shout outs here to give. Victoria, hi, Ben and Guess. Hey, Victoria, good to see you. Donna Salazar, hello from sunny Scottsdale. Looking up. Oh, Olivia. Hey, what's up, Olivia? I just talked to her from Toronto. What's up, Olivia? Good to see you. Jason Rollins from Foxborough, Mass. How about those Patriots? Jack Jampel, hello from Philly. How about those Eagles? What's up, Jack? Hey, I'd love to hear your questions, Jack. Jack's always good for a question. Johanna, hello from Sweden. I'd love to hear your questions and thoughts there from Sweden. Johanna was very involved yesterday. Nicola. We got a question. Is market check part of the new system? From Nicola. Do we need more information?
We do. Market check was that. Oh, are we talking about resident labor market test?
I
think so. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's resident labor market test, no. That's another good thing is no more advertising. So it used to be the case that we have to advertise for 28 days arbitrarily on a given website, depending on the job and depending on what the salary is and so on and so forth. That's taken away. So effectively, you don't need to advertise. But having said this, of course, the role needs to be genuine. And as most roles are genuine, you would, if you want a new worker coming to the UK or anywhere, if you hire anyone, you will have to advertise in some way, shape or form. But the only good thing about that, of course, there's no sort of set format on how you want to advertise or whatever. In fact, there's no requirement for you to actually prove that you have advertised, as long as the role is genuine and there's a genuine vacancy and there's an offer of a role, then you sort of meet that sort of criteria, so to speak.
And Fiona,
So we will have to advertise certain positions. It's totally going to depend on what type of a visa they're applying for. But if this is what we call a direct hire for somebody who is not, let's say, senior manager or high level or doesn't have a certain level of salary and is not falling into an intra-company transfer. So let's say the hiring of a chef, there you probably would have to advertise. We do have a shortage skills as well, a list, and that list is also regional, so it makes it slightly more complicated. They love doing that in France, making everything complicated. That's why we're super intelligent, these people in immigration here. Sorry, just to sort of pass on the message. But yes, they may have to advertise as such.
Fiona, I want to go back to a point that that from Stacey's question earlier. And Antonio said that a lot of the heavy lifting is on your side of the water there, as it may be. What are you seeing? What is the impact like from where you stand?
So what we've seen is that I think that most companies and even we have a lot of private clients, British nationals, could probably have been better prepared if there hadn't been COVID.
So how did that make an impact? I'm curious.
Well, so COVID threw a huge impact that everybody was so concentrating about COVID and where are our employees? Are they safe? What do they need in the way of assistance? Are they in lockdown, not in lockdown? And that really hit everybody over the summer. And then it sort of fizzled out when we all thought, oh, we're going into summer vacation. And then it came back again. So during the periods where we should have been thinking about, okay, how many British nationals do I have in my company who are in Europe and what is required and what are their statuses, and how many am I going to be bringing in the next 6 months or 1 year, HR people had to deal with a whole lot of other issues which were very much related to COVID rather than the planification that could have happened around Brexit. And then maybe people were also thinking there's going to be a deal.
Well, I think it's human nature, right? To say, okay, in January, like, okay, this is actually happening and I've got a year to figure it out. Yeah. And then 2 months later, you don't have a year anymore because now you're focused on COVID and stuff. And that same group of human resources professionals, they were probably sorting out Brexit. We're also sorting out COVID, to your point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then of course summer hits, to your point, and they're like, okay, maybe we're gonna have a respite here from the COVID stuff, maybe wishful thinking. But what has been the effect of that? And I don't want to say, maybe procrastination might be a strong word, but that lack of opportunity to planify. You use the word planification. Yes. That word, I don't even know if that's. I think
that was one of the big things. The other thing is that and I'm only speaking for France, and maybe there are other people here. I know that it was Joanna from Sweden. Perhaps they can say what's happening in their countries, because each European country is handling this slightly differently. I mean, the main rules apply, but otherwise the actual managing of it in each country is different. So first of all, here in France, they had a platform which they set up. So they launched it once, and then they stopped it. And then they said, this is going to be launched again in September. And it didn't really come up and wasn't really running until, let's say, early October. And it wasn't quite clear until then what was going to be required. So everybody's there saying, okay, what is going to be required? What do I need in the way of documents? Who can file on that? Who can't file on that? So in the end, the platform is for any British national who had entered or is in France before the 31st of December 2020. And they have until the end of June to file on the platform. So some companies said, okay, let's get these folks moving into France before the year end so that we have them there, and all they have to do is file online. And it's quite simple. It's an online filing. You tick certain boxes, you fall into certain categories of whether you're working, you're not working, whether you're an entrepreneur, etc., or you're retired, for example. And then once you've done that, you receive automatically by email a registration number. So you become a foreigner with a number here, whereas before you were utterly unknown in the French system. And then you will be invited into the préfecture, which is a French administrative office locally, where you will give an ID photo, because somebody didn't really think that actually you could do that online as well in the system. So no, that would be too easy. You have to go there and give them the photo, and you do have to have your fingerprints taken. And that's it. And after that, normally your permit will be sent to you by the post. So that's pretty easy for those, but those who did not arrive before the 31st of December, well, I'm sorry, they now become non-EU nationals, and they have to go through the processing of filing for visas, not for short term, but anybody who's coming, let's say, for an assignment or wants to move to France, they will have to file like an American national or an Australian national for a visa, a long-term visa and a permit, and if they're working, for a work permit.
So Fiona, I mean, do they not recognize? I mean, the UK and I mean, you effectively, we have the same system here in the UK for European nationals coming over to the UK, and you have to sort of be in the UK before the 31st, and it's slightly different for Swiss nationals and so on and so forth because of the various arrangements. But we do recognize that, you know, because COVID and everything else, even if you are outside of the UK on the 31st at 11:01, you're outside the UK, it's fine. We can still recognize that you have been a resident of the UK as long as you can prove that previously. So is that the same?
That's the same. They don't actually, I mean, so there's a lot of interpretation, recognized or not, because it's an online system. So let's say you have a house. Let's say you've had a house in the Swiss Alps, and you've been coming, just like Ben Cross, this guy who's here with us, who comes skiing for 4 months in the year to do a podcast in the Swiss Alps and eat cheese. Okay, so
I do eat a lot of cheese. You nailed it.
So he's got his chalet up in the French Alps, and he's a British national, and he comes over. He's been coming over for the last 10 years. And no, absolutely no issue on that.
Never
And
an issue.
He's been spending 4 months skiing every year.
Broadcasting.
That's super. Yeah, skiing and broadcasting and eating cheese and drinking wine, having a good time. Maybe he's invited his friend Ben Sukia to come with him as well. We don't know. Anyway, or Janet. Yeah, Janet. I'm sure she'd love to come. So anyway, now he has an issue because he has to file. But Ben's lucky, because he's had his house there for 10 years. He's probably got a couple of utility bills. And because he's a highly organized, and British nationals are highly organized, he's kept all his travel receipts. I mean, I'm really amazed. They are so organized on this. So you say to them, okay, when you traveled 5 years ago, do you by any chance have a ticket? Excuse me. I mean, I throw them all out. They all have them. They say, oh, yes, I've got my ticket. And they show me their ticket or a copy of the ticket. So that's fine. So they can justify when they came in. A lot of them are probably paying housing tax and they have a house here. So it doesn't matter whether they're physically in the UK or they're not, because it's an online filing as such. But you still have to actually justify. You have to give a date when you entered.
Yeah.
So either it's before. So the big difference that we have here is that either you've lived in France for over 5 years, in which case you get a 10-year permit, or you've been living in France for under 5 years, in which case you get a 5-year permit.
Yeah, we are a lot easier then in that sense for, I suppose, because we one single country rather than, benefit of the 27. Our system is a lot easier. It is still online filing. The approval is online, so we don't need to go to any prefectures. We don't need to, it's literally the case of mobile phone, online submission. We get a letter, which in itself is troublesome, and I'll probably talk about that later because of compliance. But other than that, you get an electronic piece of paper saying, hey, you are pre-settled or settled status, and so you get your 5 years, or you get your ILR, your indefinite leave to remain, or settled status, so to speak. So we are a bit more generous, I guess, than France. Of course, I suppose with France and British rather.
But I think it's because you've got so many more people. I mean, you've got the whole of the EU, all the EU citizens who have to do it, whereas each EU country just has the British nationals. So we still have a lot, because somebody the other day said to me there are 143,000 British nationals in France, which is, I mean, it's huge from an immigration's perspective. It really is huge.
And Fiona, are you handling a significant portion of those 143,000?
Of course.
I should hope.
Of
Yes.
course.
How has business, and we've got some great questions. We're going to get to all those questions here. Please make sure you leave them. Zach, Tracy, Tim, Ken, Elizabeth, I'd love to see some more questions here. I'm going to ask all those questions. And hit that like button if you haven't already. We've got a bunch of people on LinkedIn. This is really awesome. Let me ask you though, just as a business person, just out of curiosity, what has business been like for your respective firms due to Brexit? What kind of an impact has that had? And I'm going to start with I'll start with you, Fiona, and I'll go to Antonio.
Oh, it's had a very positive impact for us. Yes.
I need a little more. It's a long shot.
It's had a positive impact. I'll tell you why. First of all, because I'm British, so it's very easy for me to speak about what are the consequences for British people in France. I mean, I'm going through exactly the same thing. I have to do all of this myself.
Yeah.
And I was also very lucky that a year and a half ago, I was interviewed by the press here. I was on the TV and everything like that. And that was all thanks to a client, actually, who spoke to the press. Because he was in advance, and a lot of the British nationals like myself, who've been here for years and years, I won't say how many, wanted to apply for French citizenship. So to begin with, we had a lot of them who came in to apply for French citizenship. And now we have some who are coming in still about French citizenship, and we have a lot of inquiries about British nationals with ancestry rights, but that's a different subject. But a lot of them have also started to look at that because they feel European. One of their parents was French, and nobody until now had thought about doing anything. And now suddenly they realize, well, actually, I should perhaps action that, and if possible, if I have a right, to obtain French nationality, which they do by birth. Anybody who has a French parent, by right, is French at birth. But it has to be claimed. And then you have to prove a whole lot of other things, and that your mother or your father didn't lose their nationality.
Claimed. When you say claimed, I mean, what's that process like? Can it be claimed at any time? Does it be claimed in a certain amount of time?
So you have to be careful that your parents were French when you were born. That's very important. That they didn't lose their nationality at any time. And then also, how long has the parent, if they have left France, how long ago have they been out of the country? Because if they've been out of the country for 50 years, then you can't claim as such. But
Okay.
a lot of the people, their parents left France even 20 years ago or 30 years ago, but their births weren't registered at the French consulate. They were born, let's say, in London, but they weren't registered as French nationals with the French consulate. So you have to go through and that is a painful process, to say the least. You have to go through a whole procedure to claim your nationality and your right. But it is a right. You are French.
That's so fascinating. Because here in the U.S., if the child's born in the U.S., then they're a U.S. citizen. But if their parents are, or whatever, I mean, they come here later. Obviously, there's an issue. So it's very interesting how each country determines this. Antonio, going back to the question about the impact of Brexit to your business and maybe even to you personally. I mean, can you give us a flavor for that?
I mean, personally, I've been busy because just last year, because I've got a few nationalities myself, and I've been busy trying to struggle with the Portuguese consulate to try to get my daughter Portuguese nationality because I'm Portuguese by nationality. Also trying to get Canada to recognize my daughter, which now has been taking a year to try to deal with. So I need to talk to a good friend. I know he's online, probably about that, but that's a whole different ballgame.
He might be snowboarding.
Is that Ken? Are we shouting out Ken Nicolane over here?
Shouting out Ken, yeah, probably finishing off his turkey, to be honest.
Ken, come to my chalet, Ken. You're more than welcome.
But business in itself has been extremely busy. I think since I remember I was in Las Vegas when the Brexit vote came in, and I knew I really need to fly back within the next few days because the phone's going to ring off the hook, and indeed it did. And for the next 4 years after that, it has been. And really similar experience to Fiona's. People wanted to get permanent residence. They want to claim their rights, ancestry. They want to apply for citizenship and have dual citizenship, of course. And a lot of these dual citizenship questions start coming up. And then, of course, it sort of moved on to 2018, 2019, when we start to have the European Union settlement scheme in play, where people can apply for pre-settled status and settled status. That got a whole mass of work that's required. And of course, leading up to its, December, when we have those new point-based systems that we were just discussing, it's about sponsor licensing and, compliance, about work permits. I still call them work permits. It's too old. Certificate of sponsorships, rather, all of those type of stuff that are being discussed. So actually, it's been quite amazing, but not just from, I think, the EU itself in terms of coming to the UK. I think it's more the attractiveness of what Brexit, whether you agree with it or not. I personally don't agree with Brexit personally, but it does sort of, to a lot of entrepreneurs, are seeing benefits of coming to the UK as a result of Brexit. So we're getting a lot of international moves as a result of Brexit. So yeah, business has been really positive in that sense for Brexit, in terms of our business.
That's so interesting. And I'd like to encourage everybody out there that's watching right now. We got a bunch of people on LinkedIn right now. Go ahead and let us know, what is the impact to your business been from Brexit? I'd love to hear kind of a flavor of whatever, whether you're in the removals industry, as the Brits say, or you're in tax, or just global mobility, RMC, corporate side. Love to know how Brexit has changed your day-to-day and your business. We've got some really cool questions here. Go ahead, hit that like button and leave some questions here. I see a bunch of you out there. Let's see here. We've got Zach checking in, loving the information. Nicola got a comment here. In Europe, we have noticed a lot of employees applying for permanent residency, and in best case scenario for dual citizenship if eligible. Many countries have introduced provisional statuses. No Brits are getting kicked out until June at least. Big smile there. Thoughts? Are you seeing this?
How to change your day in the day of business. So,
Fiona, are you seeing this? Fiona and Antonio, are you seeing any of this?
No, absolutely. I see a lot of the permanent residence and dual citizenship. Certainly, nobody's going to get kicked out. I think the whole point about the withdrawal agreement, not the UK trade deal, because it's just another whole different beef that I have. But at least the withdrawal agreement is to protect those rights. And I think every country is scrambling to try to achieve those. I mean, UK, of course, has to sort of lead by example, so to speak. So they have created a much easier system for Europeans to come in or to remain in the UK rather. But I suppose, from Fiona just now, I mean, I suppose, France, for example, has a system ready to protect the rights of Brits in France anyway. So I think each European country is, from what I'm hearing, at least from our partners as well, is having systems in place. Whether or not it's a bit, complicated is another story, I think. But certainly there are systems in place so that nobody gets kicked out, or try not to.
I think that anybody who is here will not get kicked out. That's for sure. And I think that now what most EU countries are doing is that they're fighting to win the battle of luring companies and talent into their own country.
Absolutely.
That we have seen a lot of companies who would naturally, or potential startups and investors who would naturally have gone to the UK, who are not going to the UK now, who are coming to France because they want to have a European hub and they don't want to have issues on tax, social security, various immigration requirements. And so here there is, I mean, France is really, really, really working on this. Business France are doing an absolutely incredible job on it, trying to make France as attractive as possible, and to keep the talent here. And now we have the digital nomads because of COVID. So that's a whole new game as well to add in.
So I want to talk about winners and losers, and I want to talk about where the people are going. Are they coming into the UK? Are they leaving? What the future is. I want to prognosticate a little bit. I want to hear your thoughts as well. For those of you watching, we got a couple of questions and comments we're going to get to, and then we're going to talk about this in the second half of the show here. So let's see. We've got hey, Elizabeth's checking in from Connecticut, Southern Connecticut in the house. Nicola has a question for Antonio. Does the online system mean that Europeans will be able to circumvent the visa application at the English consulates, meaning regardless of the settlement scheme, and for people who haven't been to England before?
No, circumvent is a terrible word in the immigration, especially as a lawyer. It's a scary, scary word.
Circumvent is?
Yeah, circumvent definitely is. It scares me. But no, effectively, it is a very efficient system. Well, some may not agree, but I think it's quite an efficient system. But it's not designed for people who've never been to the country to apply for it. I mean, it's pretty lax in terms of, I mean, from experience so far, it's really, they ask you a few questions. It takes around maybe half an hour to fill out the form, and more likely than not, they're already prejudge what status you are. You haven't, have you been in the UK for more than 5 years? Have you not been? They check through your national insurance number if you have one, electronically to make sure that you are, and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't suggest to anyone who's never been to the UK start applying on the online system and say, oh, hey, by the way, because of COVID, I can't come to the UK, but I've been in the UK 10 years ago, whatever. They will want to see those proofs if they need to, so I wouldn't suggest that. But for those who actually have established some form of residence in the UK in the past, and haven't, been outside the UK for, more than 6 months or 12 months, in exceptional circumstances, I mean, by all means should apply before June, because it's almost a done deal in terms of granting pre-settled status, and I will encourage that. But yeah, there has to be some proof. But yeah, there is no need, because of the electronic system, that anyone needs to go, do biometric residence permits or anything of that sort. It's really, literally, the entire thing is going to be online.
Nicola is laughing at your fear of circumvention. I think expat circumventors might be a nice business name. Here we go. Let's see. Ben Sukia here. My friend and chalet partner. A lot of questions are raised about what activities can be completed as business visitors if you are a UK national in France. A cautious approach is best, but each country has their own interpretations through national law. What can EU nationals do in the UK is more broad, I believe, and beyond just business meetings. Would you care to comment on that?
Sure. So, business visitor status is probably, for any immigration people, the most dangerous status that exists. And it's doubly dangerous because a lot of people think, whether it's the employee or it can be the company, think, oh, that doesn't matter. He's a British national. He can go in for a couple of weeks to France. We'll just send him there. You have to
Right.
know what the person is doing. And probably, in most cases, he shouldn't have a business visitor status. A business visitor status, you can do commercial development for your company that is not the French entity. So if you want to come in and meet a whole lot of clients, that's fine. You can do that. You cannot be having meetings which are to do with project work that you are working on and are going to be invoiced or have been invoiced. So I don't know, you're running an IT company and you've had a big win with a bank here in France and you want to send a couple of folks in to do a little bit of testing. No, that is not a business visitor. They are performing work as such. So they need a work permit. You can attend conferences as long as you're not being paid as such, but you still have to be very, very careful. You have to be very cautious. One of the just a very quick story to give you the example of how cautious you have to be, because this is a case study which KPMG had. They had the owner of an Italian company who was attending a trade show here and had a stand. So he's Italian, his company's Italian, he's on a trade show. Does he need something? I think that anybody who's done immigration here in Europe would say, no, he doesn't need anything.
He's selling. He's on a sales activity, a business development activity.
Yeah. Well, the labor inspection did not take the same view. They said that he should have actually had a prior detachment declaration, that he was on secondment, and that he was here performing activity. He was showing his products, but he was performing an activity. So it can differentiate. But most of the time, we all believe that, yes, he was here on a trade show. He didn't need that. But anything that's outside of that, you're attending training, you have to be very careful. Is this training part of a project that you're going to be invoicing? Are you being trained on something by your client? In which case it's work. It's sharing of knowledge.
This is really scary for me because I'm planning a European road show, and it really precludes the kind of work that I can do while I'm there. We need to talk about this in practical meaning. So Fiona, let's just plan first. I promised everyone we plan our road show here.
Super.
So let's assume that would I be flying directly into De Gaulle or Heathrow, and then starting from there, and then let's talk about
today you'd be better flying directly into Charles de Gaulle, because if you went to Heathrow, you wouldn't be allowed out. You'd be stuck. So I just steer clear of the UK. Just leave it for the moment.
We're just going to carve out that little island in the sea there. We're going to carve that out. Yeah. And we're going to go right into De Gaulle, and then starts the road show. And so I'll be broadcasting live from Expat Partners, and interviewing the illustrious managing director there. Now, at what point do I need to worry about a work permit, visa, whatever you call it?
You probably don't need one, because are you being paid by anybody in France?
We haven't negotiated yet, Fiona.
Okay, we'll have to do that.
But let's pretend both scenarios.
Let's pretend. Okay, so let's pretend. Let's pretend that you're doing this. It's Love and Relo. They're sending you over here. You're going to go on your roadshow across Europe. If you're really spending a short time and you're just broadcasting, you probably wouldn't need a work permit. We might say, as a precautionary measure, that you need to have a posted worker declaration because you're employed and you're being sent by your employer here. Okay?
So I'm self-employed. I'm a consultant. I'm self-employed. So it's debatable whether this is an activity of my employer.
So, as long as you're not selling your product as such. But if, for example, I said, "Oh, Ben, I think I'd like you to come along, and I will pay you to set up a roadshow about immigration, and we're going to go all across Europe, and Expat Partners is paying you for this. This is Expat Partners Roadshow. Mm-hmm. You're running it, but it's not Love and Relo.
Right.
Therefore, I'm paying you. There, you're going to have a work permit.
Okay. And I mean, is that hard to get? Is that like, or is that easy? Or do I need to, what would that process look
So
like?
probably because we'd have to look at various options as such, but you're on detachment. So if you're on detachment and you're on a short term today and you don't need a visa because you're an American national, you're going to be fine. Okay. If you were coming over long term, so let's say we did this roadshow and we're going to say, actually, you're going to spend 4 months in France. We're going to do the big tour of all the cities. You're going to be drinking wine every evening from a different place.
I
Fabulous.
can clear my schedule. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to find funding. That's a different subject. But I'm sure that Antonio will help me here.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Except, can I go there? Can I include England in part of my road show or no? No, seriously. Like that's like legitimate. Like if I'm going to do a European, of course, now the word European, I guess, takes on
But
different
it's not,
context.
the UK is no longer Europe,
Yeah.
please. Remember, Brexit has happened, Ben.
Does EMEA become BMEA? How does this work? If I want to go do a EMEA, road show, and I want to incorporate Antonio and some of my friends over there in the UK. How do we even? We're joking, but I am curious. How would I facilitate something like that? On your end, I've got a great sponsor here in Fiona, but how would I do something like that on your end, Antonio?
Again, it's finding funding, isn't it? But
so really, but is it easy?
I think it's very similar, to be very frank, with the UK visitor rules. It's are you actually working? If you are not actually working on soil, so to speak, then you can do whatever you want because you come in, through the e-gate effectively, because you're a US national, you don't need a visa. So it's really abiding by what are you actually doing in the UK. If it's having cheese and wine with me, very bad cheese and wine because it's probably too expensive.
Yeah,
Now
I'm
to
not going to the
import
UK for cheese and wine. Okay,
Please
I'm
don't.
going to teach you.
You're going to have really terrible cheddar and some very sour
Cheddar's
wine.
lovely. Why did you say that? A nice mature cheddar. Come on.
Nice mature cheddar. Said no one ever. Yeah,
Yeah.
how about some fish and chips at the pub and a nice
And if you do that, then that's definitely fine. Nobody's gonna raise an eyebrow on that. But of course, if you're being paid for it and I'm paying you to do certain work for me whilst you're in the UK, then effectively I'm hiring you. Now, there are certain exceptions in terms of service providers in the UK, depending on, if you're IT professionals, for example, and you are installing a machine or whatever it is, then, we have a contract you're coming over to install or maintain, then we have those provisions where you can do that. So it really depends on the type of activities that you are actually going to be doing. And to be honest with you, the amount of work that you're going to be doing in the UK, and that would sort of determine what those
as little as possible, Antonio.
As little as possible. If it's just more about 90% fish and chips, we will have to, get a diet on later on. But, if it's 9%, that should be fine. And I think that's where the easiness of UK visit rules are. But you can definitely incorporate that because, each country has their own thing. So, of course, you go to Europe and you follow your European Schengen rules. You come to UK, you follow UK visitor rules, which has always sort of been the case, I guess, even when we were part of the EU.
Yes, I think so. But I think that one of the difficulties or one of the things that certainly HR and global mobility professionals in the companies are going to have to be aware of is that the UK is now going to have the same difficulties as the US has in keeping track of people, because to come into the country for a couple of weeks, they're not going to need a visa. So how do you know that these people are traveling, and how do you know what they're doing, and do they have the A1 form if it's going to be required?
Sure.
How are you going to be able to keep a track of their tax? It's adding on a level of complications.
I agree with that. Even when I keep saying the point-based system is very simple, it's because we're very used to doing it for third country nationals, so to speak.
Yep.
And so it's almost roll off your tongue that, oh, by the way, you need to prove your English, or if you're American, of course, you don't need to. But all these type of things we can do. But now, if I'm speaking to a German person or French national coming to the UK, I'll be, it'll be something that I have to bear in mind that, oh, by the way, you need to follow the normal immigration rules. And you have to prove your English. And, they're not going to be happy. They're like, oh, what the heck? I've been traveling for the last 20 years to work in the UK, and I don't even need to think about that. Now you tell me I need a work permit. And you have to go through all this sponsor licensing process. I need to, make sure that, I have a compliance thing in place. HR, I think the worst off are really, to be honest with you, both assignee experience is going to be terrible because they now have to, rather than, pack your bags and come over to the UK.
Log in.
Yeah, they'll have to now do all of this planning, months in advance. For companies who hasn't got a sponsor license, for example, would have to do a lot of planning in terms of timing, at least, sort of 8 weeks in advance, just to make sure that they get license in place so that they can hire foreign nationals, which is effectively European nationals. So I think that's where the complication is. It's global mobility professionals, having a lot of fun, of course, because we're doing a lot more work. But, if in terms of HR professionals, global mobility partners, they're going to be unhappy simply because they have so much more planning to do, of course, recording that they need to do, reporting that they need to provide to the government as well. So it's all of those. I think that's where the complication is, and that's where the terribleness is, I think.
And you're also going to have the complication, Ben, just so that you realize that these poor UK nationals now have to think about their 90 days during a 180-day period. So they might be doing business travel, but they might be going to their chalet in the French Alps, and suddenly they've hit over 90 days. And that's going to be an issue. That we know.
How will I manage my time? Okay, well, let's see here. We got some other questions and comments. This is fun. I hope that this is not just a fantasy and this becomes reality. This is my 2021 goal, is to take this show on the road here. Let's see what some of the comments are here. Johanna, look, talking about the impact of Brexit, not in the business at the moment, as some of you know, but a lot of people I've talked to in the movie industry say that Brexit has affected the business in a good way. A good friend I talked to said that they're really busy and have had several trucks in and out of the UK more than ever. It's interesting because, we had a couple of movers on yesterday, and big shout out to Johanna, an excellent moving and logistics and relocation professional up in Sweden. So if anybody's looking for someone amazing, hit up Johanna. But I will say, it's interesting because whether we agree with Brexit or we don't, and many people that kind of watch the show and are on the show disagree philosophically with kind of the reasons, I suppose, that we got here. But we can't deny that it's good for our particular business transactionally, because there's a lot of transactions. There's a lot of people moving and a lot of commotion and a lot of people trying to find a chair when the music stops, it seems like. Now, the question becomes, and this is a question I'm going to ask both of you, and it's an unfair question, but that's what I do. I build up all this goodwill just to ask unfair questions at the end of the show. No, but the unfair question I want to ask you is, long term, and I'd like you to kind of represent each of your respective constituencies there, Britain and the EU. Do you think this is good for your side long term? And that doesn't put you in the position of maybe arguing one way or the other for your side.
So do I think this is a good thing for France? No.
France and the EU.
No, definitely not.
Why not? I mean, I know it's obvious to you.
Well, I think it's obvious that, first of all, it's taken so many years to try to build the EU, and that one country leaving could be a disastrous effect on others thinking, well, perhaps we should leave. So the whole fact of trying to build this unity is going to be dismantled. And I think that it's very sad that a strong member is leaving as well. As such. One that was a port of entry for a lot of companies. I mean, whether they were American, Australian, Canadian, whatever, Indian companies, they've used the UK for years as their hub for the EU. Yeah. So no, I think it has a very negative effect on everybody.
Follow-up question. Should English speakers have to give back the French words?
No, they can keep it.
They can keep it. No, we can keep our lingerie, apparently.
Yes, lingerie, all of it. French kisses, everything.
Well, that's nice of you. That's fair. Maybe we'll pay a licensing fee. Antonio, your thoughts? Good,
Yeah,
bad in the future.
I agree, hands down, bad. It cannot be good. I mean, it took 40 years to build the EU. Yes, I mean, UK has never been, or Great Britain has never been a willing participant. Let's just say. I mean, they always, try to, veto everything that the EU say. But nonetheless, we have been the partner. We have been a very dedicated partner, so to speak, on many fronts that the Brexit camp has never discussed, let's just say. And I think we are seeing some of it getting unstuck. I mean, we a few days ago, because it's more COVID than anything, but a few days ago we saw the difficulty of truckers being stuck over Christmas, during actually New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve rather, and then Christmas as well, and that's terrible. Of course, that's COVID, but we can sort of see that if we're not part of that family, you have those red tape, you have those formalities, you have all of those, and whatever trade deal there is, that's not going to negate that. I mean, we've seen this. I mean, I've had the unpleasure, I guess, or displeasure rather, to have a quick skim of the trade agreement, and I can't see anything that's sort of beneficial to the UK. Yes, in the short term, it's brilliant because people are moving around. UK is getting a lot more fees, because getting sponsor license, and the personnel moving over to UK is thousands of pounds. Immigration, health surcharge, skill surcharge, but it can't be good in the long term because if I was an employer, unless it's absolutely necessary.
Yes,
I'm not going to move 50 member of staff over and paying potentially £10,000 per individual. It cannot be. So you're not really attracting the best and the brightest. And so the argument of taking back sovereignty is actually, well, taking in yourself being isolated. And I feel that effectively, no matter how many trade deals you do, you're not part of that bigger family. So yeah, and I think 28 countries worth of economy cannot be worse off than one country trying to hack at it in the greater world. So I think long and short is I think in the long term it will be terrible for both EU because of the reputational loss, so to speak, of losing its member, but also definitely for the UK because we've lost 27 family members, so to speak, all at once, and trying to get into dark woods alone.
It's like losing a cousin, first cousin.
Yeah.
You lose them, and then I think that one of the other things which we haven't had time to discuss is when you take things like Erasmus, which is the most incredible university exchange program across Europe, and now it means that any European students who are on an Erasmus program cannot benefit from it any longer. And the same applies to any British students who wanted to come to Europe on the exchange program. And that is really, really sad.
Can you explain the Erasmus program, Fiona?
Yes, Erasmus is the most wonderful program that was started about, I'm going to probably get it wrong, but I would think about 30 years ago, as such. And it was an idea from a Czech professor originally, who's called Ladislav Seric, who I actually worked for, and he was working for the European training program. And he with a whole lot of other professors, they thought up the idea that it would be fantastic for EU students to be on an exchange program between the universities. So they set up these exchange programs. So you were able to do 1 year in France, another year in Italy, and then your last year in Sweden, for example. And this has been developed over 30 years, and it's the most amazing program. And I mean, there are even films on it. And students, it's wonderful for them. They have a complete year's experience in a university in another country. They learn the language, and they're the children, or they're the students who are going to become mobility employees because they're used to traveling. They've met other nationalities. And now that will no longer be possible with British students in the UK, and for Europeans who were going to Oxford and Cambridge and wonderful universities. It's finished.
That is sad. We got some comments over here. Hit that like button. Also, leave a comment if you want. We got a few more minutes here. We got a bunch of people just join here on LinkedIn, which is really cool. You're so popular, Fiona and Antonio. This is wonderful. And Antonio, what are you sipping on over there? It doesn't look like beet juice. What are you having?
No, it's actually this is what I'm sipping on.
Oh, Love. Yeah, Love. Now you know what's interesting about Love.
Might as well.
Left used to be Belgian,
Belgium, indeed. Belgium, yeah.
but actually was purchased by InBev, who owns Budweiser. Just not to make it taste worse, but it's a good beer.
Now it's I might just
I know.
Yeah,
Now you're gonna have to go find a way to get rid of that. Nicola says in response to the audience poll on what the impact is to their business, and he is a paralegal and he apologizes for that. He says it looked as if a process it looked at as a process in the last 2 years. Brexit brought many insecurities to the affected employee population. Each extension gave us all in the industry a heart attack and a sense of relief at the same time. Planning cardiologists seem to be the big winner. Planning was in the realm of creative thinking and preparation for the worst case scenario.
As always.
Interesting. That is where the money's made. Let's see. Pa checking in. Hey, Pa.
Hi, Pa.
Good guy there. Good friend of the program here. Elizabeth is joining me on my European tour. I don't know what my wife will think of that. Nicola says, beef jerky from Texas, please. Sure thing, Nicola. Let's see here. Ken Nicolane, if you are not part of the family, you will have a unified family effectively against you. Ooh, agree with Antonio. It's very.
I think so. Now that sounds a bit scarier, but of course, the French is going to take I believe, the European presidency very soon. I think we're going to be punished very soon. But we've got 4 years, I guess, with the so-called amazing oven ready, or however Boris called it, oven ready deal. So hopefully we've got 4 years of trade, I guess, at least for now. Yeah. Although it doesn't cover anything. I mean, I can probably talk for another 2 hours about trade and services that wasn't included. But then let's not talk about that.
No, we're not going to talk about your beef with the trade deal.
Too much.
That's another program. Jana checking in. Wonderful conversation. Hey, Jana. Good to see you. Can't wait to talk to you. Pa with the hand clap emoji there, looks like. All right. And Massimo, who still is Ben. All right. I wish I was more prompt. I don't know what that's a reference to. Massimo will be on the program, though, with Ben Sukia. Global mobility is at the core of Erasmus to make sure what it is. Left, great beer, Carl says. Carl, what do you think now that it's owned by InBev? And Nicola says, any alternative to Erasmus will be inevitably more expensive.
Yeah.
Random comments here. Let me ask you this. These are great comments. Everybody hit that like button. I appreciate we got a bunch of people on LinkedIn. Let me ask you now to put on your analyst hat. And we talked about how we don't think this is good for our respective constituencies. But let me ask you, who are the winners in Brexit? And you can't say nobody. I know Fiona. I know I'm not trying to lose my sponsorship and my work permit here, but who are the winners? Let's challenge ourselves to think: what are the countries and the industries perhaps that are going to come out of this looking? Besides these big wig immigration firms.
In the EU, the winners could be Eastern European countries.
How so?
Well, because cost of living is going to be less there. Wages are going to be less there. Then it's going to depend on immediately they second anybody, let's say, from Poland into France. Well, then you've got the EU directive, so you have to have the same wage here as any employee in France. But while they're working in these Eastern European countries, and we have seen from Asia a huge interest in Eastern European countries right now. So they may be the winners on this. And maybe there are going to be British nationals who actually want to move to the EU, who feel that, yes, they're more European and that they don't want to lose on that. But maybe they don't have necessarily the finances to come and settle in Paris, but they could be thinking about places like Portugal, where the cost of living is much less, where real estate is much less, and retire there. So yes, there probably are a lot of countries that are going to be winners on this.
So not all 27 family members are super depressed right now. They're like, hey, I got an angle here.
I don't think that, to be honest with you, there are a lot of Europeans who are not super depressed about it.
Mm.
You know, there's always this love-hate relationship, which goes back to William the Conqueror. And
that guy,
you know,
the conqueror.
they'll bring up this, or they'll bring up Dunkirk, or they'll bring up other subjects. But so they're not super depressed, except for those who do trade. So those who actually trade with the UK, they're going to lose.
Right. Some people are just like, hey, I just got rid of my surly cousin that drinks too much at family gatherings. And others are thinking, yeah, but he buys a lot of stuff. He pays for the bill. Antonio, I'm going to challenge you with the same question here, okay? And you can't say nobody, and you can't say Eastern European countries. Go.
You're lucky I had a beer. I've just had a beer, so I can probably think on a tangent. But if I have to push come to shove, I think agriculture is probably going to be in the UK. I mean, we import about in the summer we import slightly less, but in the winter we import about 70 to 80% of citrus fruit and veg into the UK. And so I think people need to think. I mean, of course, soil's allowed and all the science allowed, but I think there will be a way for agriculture and agri-tech, for example, to come into play. I know a few startup companies that I work with who are in agri-tech, really excited about Brexit because of this effective, bad trade deal, and of course the need for normal living. So I think that type of trade will continue.
Is that because the UK is going to be home growing more of they're going to grow it domestically, or because
I think that would definitely. I mean, I'm not close enough to the trade, but certainly I think that certainly be a thought of doing it. I mean, again, I'm going back to the Christmas standstill of truckers sitting there going, "Oh, what the heck's going to happen?" And I think people are starting to think, maybe we should have more sheep and cows in the UK. Maybe end up Scotland or something, or we going to do more than strawberries, and we'll do more Brussels sprouts and have more citrus fruit in London instead of imported from Spain. So I think they will start thinking about that, and certainly I think agri-tech is certainly one of the things that are being explored, certainly in the tech world as well, because of what we are seeing at the moment. So I think that particular trade will benefit. I can't really, to be honest with you, think of a second trade that would really, really benefit as a result of Brexit. I think finance is going to be terrible. I think in the long run, legal is going to be quite terrible, in the very long run, rather. So, yeah. This
has been a fascinating conversation, and I want to thank everybody who's watching, and all the comments are great. I'm going to ask for a final thought just from each of you. But before I do so, I just want to thank everybody who's watching. Thank you so much for the comments. Thank you so much for the questions. The show is always better when you get involved. It's all for you. So thank you for being here and dedicate some time. And Fiona and Antonio, this has been lovely. So thank you both. Fiona, would you leave us with a final thought?
The final thought is that family members might be separated, but they're always family members.
That's nice. Antonio, would you like to say something to your far-flung
I can't follow one. That's a brilliant.
I know, wasn't that nice? Like concise. Yeah. It was like a Hallmark card.
I mean, I'm going to go back to immigration, because I think what we need to do is planning. I think for all professionals, both in the actual immigration side and also HR professionals as well, we need to plan a hell lot more. So get your computers working, get your databases working, and get in order, because I think a lot more paperwork will be done or need to be done over the next few years, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. No, this is wonderful. This has been a great discussion. Thank you again, Fiona, Antonio.
Thank you.
I can't wait to come see you guys. You guys sort out the immigration, all right? And just send me the ticket.
I'm
there, okay? I won't work too hard, I promise.
Don't worry. You'll be adopted.
Okay, fantastic. Lovely. Wonderful, everybody. Hey, we'll see you tomorrow, same time. We're going to attack Brexit from an entirely different angle and talk to some people with more of a corporate perspective. So it'll be very interesting. Take care, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.